It's Bible Club, it's Bible Club, it's Bible Club in your town. They're singing and laughing, let's get the word around. Folks are all excited, and we are all delighted. It's Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club in our town. It's Bible Club, it's Bible Club, it's Bible Club in our town. They're singing, they're laughing, let's get the word around. We're all excited, and we are all delighted. It's Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club, Bible Club in our town. The prophet's name that God used to write that verse. Isaiah, that's right. Do you remember anything else? Does anybody remember something that we learned from Isaiah last week? Remember anything from Isaiah? Jayla, do you remember anything from Isaiah? This one might be hard, but maybe this one. Maybe this picture here. Does this remind you of anything from Isaiah? What do you think? You saw a vision of angels and God. Do you remember what the angels said? Holy, holy, holy. That's right. Very good. And then here's something else that Isaiah told us about. Remember? The baby Jesus. Way before, like 700 years before baby Jesus came, Isaiah told us he was going to come. Right? And then the verse where our verse is now, Isaiah told us that the Lord's servant would suffer and die. And all of the people's sins would be put on him. Right? Because we were all like sheep. We go astray. We get lost. We do the wrong thing. We turn everyone else away. And God lays on his servant, Jesus Christ, all of our sins. So that's Isaiah. How many know the books of the Bible?
I don't. I got one. I don't.
Okay. Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah. Today we're going to learn about Jeremiah. We're going to learn about Jeremiah. Have you ever seen somebody my age, a man, my age, or maybe even Lamar's age, somewhere between me and Lamar, or Lamar and me? That's a long time. But have you ever seen a man that age cry? It doesn't happen too much, though, does it? Well, we're going to learn about a man who was one of God's prophets who cried. He wept and cried a lot. Now, if somebody was one of God's prophets, what do you know what I mean when I say one of God's prophets? Somebody who preaches for God, somebody who prophesied to his people. Do you think what it would make somebody who is one of God's prophets cry? You're going to have to listen, because we're going to think through and tell you some of the things that made Jeremiah cry. The Bible, almost lots of people who study the Bible call Jeremiah the weeping prophet. Or we might say the crying prophet. When Jeremiah was very young, God came to him and said, Jeremiah, before you were even born, I called you, and I wanted you to be a prophet to my people. Now that's kind of interesting. I just thought of that. Isn't that interesting that God had some plans for Jeremiah before he was even born? That means that even before you're born, you're a person, doesn't it? Before you're even born, you're a person. And God told Jeremiah, before you were born, I decided that you would be one of my prophets. And Jeremiah said, but I don't even know what to say, and I'm afraid. But God said, don't worry about that. I will give you the words to say. And I want you to go to my people and tell them the words that I have for you to say. Well, a long time before Jeremiah was born, Moses was the leader of God's people. Do you remember when Moses was the leader of God's people? Way, way back. And in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses told God's people something that God had for them. And I think you might remember, there was a time when Moses told the people of God that he wanted to bless them. He had lots of really good things that he was going to do to them. He was going to have their crops be full of crops. They'd have plenty of food. They'd have peace in their land. Lots and lots of good things if they did something. Starts with a O. Does that sound like a good answer?
No.
Obey? If they obeyed, God would bless them. But he also said that if they disobeyed, what would happen? Abby? What would happen if they disobeyed? Oh, you know it.
I know.
You forgot though? What? They would get punished. Do you remember some of the ways that God said he would punish them? Some of the things he would make it so their land didn't produce any crops and there might be a famine. He would make it so lots and lots of people would get sick and die. He would make it so other countries would come in and defeat them and fight them in battle, and they would have to serve those other countries. And then he even said that if they continued to disobey, he would send a country in there that would capture them and take them away as slaves. Well, Jeremiah had to remind the people of Israel all those things that God had told them. Because you know what the people of Israel were doing? They were not obeying God. They were disobeying God. They had built up idols. And they worshipped idols. Should anybody worship idols?
No.
No, we shouldn't worship idols. Who should we worship?
God.
God. He's the only God there is. Even though people make other gods up and they make idols and they say, this is a God. Is that a God?
No.
An idol? Does an idol have ears?
No. Well, yeah.
Yeah, but can it hear?
No.
No. Does an idol have eyes?
No.
Yes. It does have eyes. But can it see?
No.
No. Does it have hands?
Yeah.
Can it do anything?
No.
Does it have a mouth?
Yes.
Can it say anything?
No.
Because it's just a piece of wood. It's just a piece of wood with gold over top of it or something like that. It's an idol. It's a dumb idol. But people will worship idols. And the Israelites were worshiping idols. They were not obeying God. And Jeremiah had to tell the people, remind them, that they were not obeying God. Is it happy when people disobey?
No.
No. So do you think Jeremiah was happy that he had to remind them that they were disobeying God?
No.
So that might be one of the reasons he was crying, right? He cried, he had to tell the people, you're not obeying God. And God is going to have to punish you. Sometimes we think that the people that tell us about punishment like it. Because sometimes we do things and we should get punished, don't we?
Yeah.
You think the people that punish us like to punish us?
No.
No, they don't like to punish us. And Jeremiah said, God is going to punish you, and that made him sad. And then God told Jeremiah to tell the people of Israel that a very strong king was going to come with all of his armies and punish them. That was the way that God was going to punish them. And they were going to come with fast horses, and they would have strong bows and arrows. And Jeremiah had to tell the people of Israel the way that God was going to punish his people. And that made him sad too. When the people of Israel heard that they were going to be punished by a strong and powerful army, do you think they said, we should stop what we're doing and we should start worshiping God? That's what they should have done, right? But they didn't. Jeremiah said, look, if God is going to punish you. And did they listen?
No.
That would make you sad too, wouldn't it? It would make you sad. I mean, if you told somebody, look, you're not doing what's right. You need to do what's right, and if you change, things will be better. And they say, well, I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. That makes you sad, and that made Jeremiah sad. One day, God told Jeremiah, he had an object lesson for the people of Israel. He said, this is what I want you to do, Jeremiah. Get yourself a belt that's made out of cloth. It's a long piece of cloth made out of cloth. And he made it into a belt, and he tied tied it around, and he wore this belt for a long time. When you wear a belt, it's real close to you, right? It kind of holds your clothes in place. So Jeremiah wore that belt for a while, and then God said, okay, Jeremiah, take that belt and go over by the river. Go over by the river and bury that cloth under some rocks. How many of you have ever been by a river? We have a river right here. I don't know if some of you have ever been. Have you ever been down by this river right here, the little Calumet? Some people go fishing there. And there's rocks down there. Okay, can you imagine taking a piece of cloth? We don't make belts out of cloth, but let's say we had an old t-shirt, something, and we dug a hole and put that in the dirt under some rocks by the river. Okay? Right? So that's there. So Jeremiah did that. He took that linen cloth that he was using as a belt, buried it in the dirt under some rocks, and he left it. Well, after a while, God said, go back and get that belt that you buried. What do you think that belt looked like after it had been buried in the dirt under the rocks by the river? Dirty. Was it worth? It was nasty. Was it worth anything anymore?
No.
The only thing you would do with that is just throw it away, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yep, and see, there's Jeremiah. He went there to get that cloth out of the rocks that was by the river, and it was all ruined, and it was worthless. Now, you said, what kind of object lesson is that? Can you think what kind of object lesson that is? God told us what the object lesson was. He said, the people of Israel, the cloth is like my people, the people of Israel. And at one time, I held them close to me. So the cloth was held close to God, and He took care of it, and they were useful, and they were helpful. But they left me. They forsook me. They went and worshipped idols, and now they're like the cloth that comes out of the ground, and they are worthless. They're not worth anything to me. And I'm going to have to destroy them. Well, Jeremiah, do you think that made Jeremiah happy?
No.
No. So Jeremiah had bad news for the people of Israel. It was the truth, but it wasn't happy. Well, one day, Jeremiah was in his place, and some messengers from the king came to him. And the messengers from the king said, Jeremiah, please pray to God for us, because Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Babylonians, is coming after us, and we need God to help us. You think God was going to help them?
No.
Why not?
Because they're sad.
Because they're sad? Well, Jeremiah is sad because God won't help them. But God would not help them, because did they worship God before? No. Did they obey God before? No. They were disobeying God. And so Jeremiah said, you know what? This is what God says. I'm trying to cover this part. God said, yeah, Nebuchadnezzar's coming, and he is going to destroy people and animals, and God says He Himself is going to fight against Israel, because you have disobeyed me, and you have not done, God, He says, I will even send lightning. I'm going to fight against the people of Israel myself and kill some of them, because they have been disobeying me. That was really sad. And then at the end of Jeremiah's prophecy, God's message, He said, but someday I'm going to send a king who's the son of David, and he will sit on a throne. And he will rule over the whole world in peace for 1,000 years. Well, that's kind of different. Things are bad right now, but someday they were going to be good. That's what Jeremiah said. Well, the people, the Nebuchadnezzar's army, they came to the city of Jerusalem, and did they fight against it right away? No, they didn't. They surrounded the city. And what happens? If you were surrounded by a huge army, could you get out? No. Could anybody come in? No. So after a while, if you were stuck in your house and you couldn't get out and nobody could come in, what would happen? After a while, all the food in the refrigerator would be gone, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And then what? Would you have you would starve. And now there's more food in the city than there is in our house. But the people of Jerusalem, they were stuck inside that city, and long time, For 2 years they couldn't leave, and finally no food was there, and they were weak, and they didn't have any strength, and they didn't have hardly any food. They were finding things to eat that we would never think of eating. And then Nebuchadnezzar's army came in, and they didn't have any strength to fight against them. And there was lots and lots of people killed. Their city was burned. The beautiful temple that Solomon had made was burned. The king's palace was burned. Houses all over, giant city bigger than the whole city of Gary, burning. People being killed, and even a whole bunch of them being taken captive. Just like God had said, right? God said, you disobeyed. I'm going to have to punish you. Some of you are going to die. Some of you are going to be taken captive. And King Nebuchadnezzar, he took hundreds and hundreds of people and tied them up and carried them off to his city, Babylon. The only people he left in Jerusalem was the very, very poor and the very, very weak and sickly. So all that was left in Jerusalem was poor and weak and sickly people. But you know who else stayed in Jerusalem? Jeremiah stayed. Jeremiah was there with those poor and sickly people. That was probably hard for him, wasn't it? That probably made him sad, didn't it? Yeah? Well, I've got to point out that God was merciful then. God was merciful because he let some of his people live. Did any of them deserve to live?
No.
No, because they had disobeyed God. But he let some of them live, and they went and they were captive in Babylon for 70 years. That's a long time. So they were sent off, carried away to Babylon to be servants and slaves and away from their home for 70 years in Babylon. So, Jeremiah was very sad. He probably went up on the hill and looked over and saw the land all burned up, charred, remains and stuff, and hardly anybody there, nobody to protect them, just barely trying to live because they didn't have any food because they'd just been starved for 2 years. It's very, very sad. And then God told him something else that would happen. God said, one day I'm going to send somebody and he will sit on the throne of David. Who is David? Did somebody say a prince?
No.
Oh, is he a king?
Yes.
David was the king of Israel, right? So David's throne was the throne that would rule over all of Israel. Was there anybody ruling over the land of Israel now?
No.
No, unless it was Nebuchadnezzar, right? And he's the king in Babylon. Well, Jeremiah said, someday I'm going to send someone who will sit on the throne of David, and he will rule the whole world from Jerusalem, and it will be a time of peace. Do you know who that is that's going to sit on the throne of David?
God.
What's his name?
God.
What's his name?
Jesus.
Jesus. Jesus is going to sit on the throne of David, and all the world will serve him and will be obedient to him. He will sit in Jerusalem. Has that happened yet?
No.
No, it hasn't happened yet. But someday it's going to. And God said in that day, he's going to put his law in his people's hearts. That sounds like something that we say every week, right?
Yeah.
Thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee, right? Yeah. And so God says he's going to do that. He's going to put his word in the heart, and his people will obey him, and it will be a time of tremendous peace. That's not happening now, is it?
No.
But someday it will. Jesus will rule the whole world, and everybody will obey him. Does everybody obey Jesus now?
No.
No, they don't. And the people that don't obey Jesus, the people that don't even care about obeying Jesus, they are going to die, and they are not going to live forever with God in heaven. They're going to live forever in hell. But those that do obey Jesus, those that want to obey Jesus, those that have turned to him and trusted him in their heart and serve him, then they will live forever with Jesus. And so where are you? Do you want to obey Jesus, or do you do your own thing? Yeah. If we do our own thing, we don't care about other people, we need to come to realize that that's not good. That's not what God wants. And we need to turn from doing our own thing to trust in Jesus and obeying Him. So we should try this week to do what Jesus wants. And if we've never trusted Jesus within our heart and turn to Him for salvation, you understand that? We ought to do that too.